Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Jeremy Scott Fitness Podcast and Radio Show, coming to you on this Wednesday evening here with an episode titled "Rules of Money," or maybe we'll call it, 17 Rules of Money, or my 17 Rules of Money. And again, it's an arbitrary number. I could probably come up with 1,700, or dwindle it down to maybe 7, because some of these kind of I guess cross over on each other. But I think it's important to share. And before I even dig in, I know a lot of you stumbled onto me because of Instagram or YouTube or Facebook, or maybe it's Men's Health, or you saw me in some magazine or some platform and thought of me as I'm a fit guy, or I'm just the big dumb muscle guy, if you will. And obviously, if you're listening to the podcast at this point, you can understand there's probably a few more layers to me, even though I'm a very primitive, basic dude at heart. The things I do care about and become educated on, I literally go 100% all in, and I punt everything else. And obviously, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a broker. I'm not a CPA. So why would you listen to me in terms of talking about money and finances? For the sake of, here's the reality. I moved here to the Scottsdale, Phoenix area over a decade ago, and I had a negative net worth. And today I talk to you guys, and I have more money than I've ever thought I could have in my life, possibly. My own commercial real estate in the area. Obviously, if you guys have followed me for any amount of time, my home is about, give or take 10 or 11 payments from being completely paid off. I'm 36 years old, something most people never do in reality. And I'm not saying that to brag or to make myself sound like I'm amazing, but over a decade ago, I had a negative net worth. I mean, my entire Jeremy Scott the human was worth about negative $5,000 because I actually had to take care credit out to pay for LASIK eye surgery that I had at like 25, 26 years old, and I didn't have the money for it. I had parts of it, but I had to make payments on it, and that essentially was the extent of my net worth. I had maybe, $2,000 in the bank. I had a vehicle and anything I had packed in my car, and that's literally what my net worth was. And so when you add all that up, I'm still in the negative for sure. So the reason I speak so passionately about money and finance, and again, I'm not a money guy. I teach super sexy advanced adult PE for a living, and I'm a fitness person. And generally speaking, in terms of careers, fitness is not one of the higher ranking ones. Now, you can make a lot of money in fitness, and quote unquote a lot of money is relative. Now, compared to if I was the equivalent of this life as a surgeon, or this life as a hedge fund manager. Obviously, those things aren't even close to scalable. Those guys can obviously out-earn us. But in fitness in this life, if you master your craft and you understand how the game works, you can make a really good living. And I share that to share this. If I can go from being a person who knows nothing about finances, doesn't understand, the market, the economy, how to leverage money, how to get out of debt, just 10 short years ago to be in the position I am today, I feel I have like a responsibility to share it with all of you listening out there who might be struggling to, pay off your home, pay off student loans, you're in credit card debt, you're in, auto loan leases, or things that just aren't going to put you in a situation to be financially independent and successful. And the other reason I share that is a lot of people, here's how the world works. Most of us, we're not born rich. We weren't born the unicorns. Our parents don't have 50 million bucks. They didn't give it to us, and they don't fund our lifestyle. So we have to spend a majority of time at work to earn money. So most of you, probably 60 to 70% of your life is spent at work. When you look at the scope of your entire existence, just as much time is spent at work as is spent sleeping, give or take. And now that's a huge chunk of your fucking life. And yet we're spending all this time at jobs, and a lot of people at jobs they don't love, or at best they kind of like, but a lot of people hate what they do for a living. Yet you're trading your lifetime for a job and a task, which is going to give you money. So essentially you're trading your lifetime for money. So if you make $75,000 a year, you're trading 65 to 70% of your life that year for $70,000, which is fine. I understand we live in an economical world. We can all think, kumbaya and wishes are going to, fund our lives, but it fucking won't. That's not reality. So knowing you have to trade your lifetime for money, and then you get money for spending your time there, and then yet not be educated on what you do with that money and how to replicate it, make your life easier let you live a more stress-free life, be able to travel the world, see things, and do a bunch of fun stuff with that money, because you're in this perpetual cycle of like going to work and overspending, going to work and overspending. It's the same way I look at people who become, overweight. And a lot of times the debt stuff it doesn't happen overnight. Most people don't blow $50,000 a day because, for the simple fact, most people don't have $50,000. Just like most people don't gain 50 pounds of weight in 6 months. It's that creepy obesity. It's gaining 2 to 3 to 4 or 5 pounds per year every year for 10 years. Now you're 50 pounds overweight. It's the same thing with people with auto loans and credit card debt and mortgage payments and student loans. They get behind on their bills. $2,000 here, $2,000 here, $3,000 here, and all of a sudden 10 years go by and they're $37,000, $47,000, $50,000, $6,000 in debt, and they don't know how to get out. The hole is too big. They don't have a shovel big enough to get out of there. So that's why I speak about this so passionately, and I think if my life was to transition to something and I was to go into speaking and talking of things outside of just health and fitness, which I don't think I ever will, I would tie it into like kind of a fitness and finance, podcast, or a fitness, which is essentially this is anyway, a fitness and finance book or a fitness and finance course where we teach people, how to live a healthier life. And I think that starts with understanding, how to use money to your benefit. And so these would be my, 17 rules from a broke kid who had no money and no resources and nothing to the person who is talking to you today, who is now financially independent and sitting in a position that I never thought I would be in at 85 years old, let alone at 36 years old. And I have to give you guys the full background. I don't come from money. Neither of my parents graduated from college. Neither of my parents ever made over $50,000 in a year. I grew up as a young kid, a lot of it in a 2-bedroom apartment. I slept on a bunk bed. We did our laundry at this place called Duds and Suds. The shit like that I'm never going to forget. My parents worked super hard. They're divorced, single, kind of parent families with 2 kids doing the best they could. I appreciate them for everything they did, but they weren't high earners. And, and I might sit here and look great because I'm making way more money than they ever did, but I also have the fucking internet, right? So there is that where, they were kind of stuck in their medium. And I share that to give you guys the premise that if I can do it, anybody can do it. I graduated college not knowing really what health, care insurance premiums were. I didn't really even know how health insurance worked, to be honest with you, when I graduated college. I didn't know what an IRA was. I didn't know what a 401k was. I didn't know what a SEP was. I didn't understand index funds, mutual funds. I didn't know anything about financing, investment, the market, how real estate really worked. And obviously it would be next to fitness and healthy living and mindset lifestyle. It's the next area of my life that I'm very much interested in, because I see how not having money, but using it poorly and using it correctly can change the scope of your happiness, the amount of stress you have in your life. So without further delay, these are, my 17 rules for money and how I would suggest you use them to, not to get, filthy crazy rich. That's up to you how much money you think you need to have in your life. For some people, it's $100,000. For some people, it's $10 million. You're going to draw the line there of, where you kind of, I guess, happiness and work index kind of meets each other at the pinnacle of what you do or don't need. But these would be my 17 tips to help you live, a more stress-free life and using money to your benefit and not being a slave to it. So rule number 1, learn how to create income. I think the biggest thing is, when you're early in your life, being able to hustle. That's what's going to matter most at first. I think for most people, their greatest wealth building tool is their ability to earn income. And where that comes down to is have a skill. Being a nice person, obviously, is part of that. But having a craft, a skill, being a technician of something, that is something you can use for the rest of your life. And I share the story of my buddy Dave Dries, who just sold his gym like a month ago, and he's still working inside the gym, not as the owner anymore, but as the technician. He's still coaching some of his personal clients. He's still covering some of the groups and stuff. That is a skill set he has forever. If he goes and tries 8 different careers and it doesn't work out for him, he can come work for me any day. And we can partner on a lot of stuff and even be partners on things, and he can work for me in other things if he chooses to, because he has a skill set. So I think the first rule of having money is learning how to generate an income and having a skill and a craft and something that you can do for other people in order for them to pay you money. Or, if you want to be in the entrepreneur life, creating it on your own. I think that's common sense and it goes without saying, but if you can earn a lot of money, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a lot of money, but it does get you, a little bit of a head start. Number 2, learning how to invest that money once you get it. And for most people, this is probably going to be in the stock market or into real estate or somewhere in that field. When you look at the scope of most people who are millionaires in America, majority of them, obviously their net worth is made up of, their assets, which typically is what they have in the stock market, whether it be, IRAs, 401ks, and then obviously if they do own real estate, whether it's personal, if they have rentals or they do commercial real estate. But learning how to invest your money, I think, is key. For a lot of you, if you do not have a financial advisor, I would urge you to pick one up instantly. And when you find one, get one that doesn't talk over you and make you feel stupid about yourself. So when they say things and they're explaining it, make them slow down. And they should be a teacher at heart. They should be able to teach you what an index fund is. They should be able to tell you, hey, here's how we're going to buy these mutual funds. They should be able to tell you, here's your estimated retirement date. Here, they should be able to tell you what's the max you can contribute. And a side note, for those of you who are working in corporate America, if you have a match at your job, do the match. Minimum, always. I'm not going to tell you how to invest the rest of your money. It's up to you guys. I would say for a general rule of thumb, most people, if you're investing probably at least 15% of your income into retirement, I think you're going to be probably in a pretty good position. But if nothing else, if your company has a 5% match and you're not giving a 5%, it's the dumbest fucking thing you can do. You're literally giving away money. Because I live in the entrepreneurial life, and I can promise you this, nobody is matching anything I'm putting in. So anything that is in my accounts, I had to self-generate from nothing. They came from scratch. So if you do work at a place with a match, you have to at least at a minimum do that. I promise you the power of compounding is real, and it might seem like it's slow, and that first $100,000 it takes you to get into your account is going to feel like it's forever, but once you hit that, man, things start to snowball in a positive way pretty quickly. Number 3, don't be a hater of money. Money is not the root of all evil. It isn't. I think money, much like social media, and if you're talking about the fitness world, much like people who do, heavy doses of anabolic steroids, it just makes you more of who you already were. Like for people who, in the fitness world, whether you guys know this or not, people who get on, a shit ton of drugs and they become aggressive and crazy and, kind of insane, in terms of the aggression that they have. Obviously there's hormones that's involved in that, but if you're already kind of a hothead and you're pissed and you're aggressive, and obviously you add, an anabolic cocktail to that, you're going to be even more of that. I think the same thing. I don't think, money changes us. I think it exposes us, just the way that social media does. And you can only fake it in front for so long. And so money is not inherently evil at all. If you're an asshole and you get a bunch of money, you're just probably going to be a bigger asshole. If you really value certain things and you don't have much money, but then you get a ton of money, you're probably going to buy more of those things that you value. So money is not evil. It actually can't buy you happiness, but it can buy you a certain sense of comfort and security if you use it correctly, in my opinion. At least that's been the experience for my life. And I am by no means money driven at anything I do, but I also understand I live in the economical world and I don't want to be a burden to friends and family. And I don't want to have to beg the banks or people to bail me out for certain things. And so I do understand the importance of it. And I do not think it's evil. Anybody who believes that, obviously, I don't think they have a really good grasp of understanding of economics in general. Number 4, give every dollar a name or a job when you're setting a budget. And I think even Dave Ramsey has like an every dollar app, which is pretty basic and easy to use. It hooks up to your bank account. You can roll through it. But what I'm saying is, as our house, obviously my wife is 33, I'm 36. Our goal is to pay off our house in 10 months. We have to be on the same page. We have to be on a budget. And every dollar that comes in, we have to know where it's going. So we have to allot this much, for mortgage, for taxes, for insurance, for excess to the principal. We have to allot this much for gas, this much for food, this much for, in our house. We have a pool person, a housekeeper, the normal things we have to do. If you have to get a haircut, if you have to get an oil change, the most basic things, every single dollar should have a name and every single dollar should have a job to do. If it doesn't, what's going to happen is that money kind of wanders off. Just the same way you guys can wander into being overweight and obese when you're not tracking macros or have an understanding of, calories in, calories out. It's the same thing with finances. If your money does not have a specific job to do in a specific place it's going, you'll tend to overspend it. At least that's been my experience at a very young age. And that's what I see a lot of people in America doing, is just literally making money but not really sure where it's going or what to do with it. So they tend to spend it, and all of a sudden they wake up and like, wow, we make a shit ton of money, but we really don't have anything to show for it. That's why I say every dollar should have a name, and every dollar should have a job to do each month. And that's just comes down to you guys setting a monthly budget together. Number 5, spend less than you earn always. I'm gonna say that again. Spend less than you earn always. And this might be the most important one. When you look at statistics of people who are millionaires, and there's about 12 million in America now, a majority of those people at scale didn't make, 6 figures, and they didn't make multiple 6 figures. But what they did do is they spent way less money than they made. It's pretty simple. If they made 50 bucks, they only spent 41. If they made 100 bucks, they only spent 37. If you wash, rinse, and repeat that for the rest of your life, you'll be rich as fuck. I know that sounds overly simplistic and basic and primitive, and maybe that's why I understand it so much, because that's how I am. But it's the truth, and it's the reality. So if you're out there, your income does matter, but it doesn't matter as much if you make 300K a year, but you're living like you make 400K a year. You're really no different than the guy who makes 30 grand a year and is spending 40 grand a year. It's essentially the same thing. You're just playing a game at a higher level. And if you're making that kind of money and you're still not making ends meet and you're still stressed and you're still in debt, you're walking a fine line, man. And I've seen a lot of people who, look like they're winning in reality, but they're really suffering, in private. And I'll touch on that more in a later episode. But again, the takeaway is you guys understand what you make and understand what's going out. Make a basic, profit and loss sheet, a P&L sheet for your life, and stick to it and make sure the P's are more than the L's month to month. Number 6, don't be a slave to money, your job, or possessions. And this is why I harp on that. Money can be used for a lot of things. And when you were a kid, it was used to buy fun shit. I remember when I was a kid and I would get like 10 bucks. I thought I was rich as hell. Or like at Christmas time, I'd end up with like $100 or like $200. Or my dad would like do the savings thing where he saved his job all year and like gave us money. Or my mom and him would pool it together. And like I had like 300 bucks at Christmas, which would last me like an entire year. Because when you're broke as shit, you make 300 bucks go real long. But you buy some things you like too. And so for me, money was to buy fun shit. So like I go in like this place called Pro Image where I grew up, and they had all these like snapbacks and fitted hats. I'm like, a fitted hat was like 25 bucks. It was like super expensive. And I'm like, or you get sometimes 2 snapbacks for like 2 for 30 bucks. And I would buy cool hats because I loved hats. Or I'd buy some basketball cards. Or if I really wanted to splurge, I could buy some Jordans, like just cool, fun shit. Or like a Jordan poster. Like I love basketball, obviously. And that's what we would do with our money. And money can let you do really cool things. But when you get into a lifestyle of keeping up with the Joneses and always thinking you have to have the newest, the fanciest, the biggest, and the flashiest, you become a slave to money. You become a slave to your job. You become a slave to possessions. And it controls you. You don't control it. Like the saying, like, being house poor. A lot of people are that, or a lot of people are driving around with, car payments and car loans. And the average car payment in America right now is $502, I think, was the last stat I pulled up. That's $6,000 a year you're paying to basically rent your car. You are making payments on a depreciating asset that is going down in value. I would never tell you guys to invest money in things with motors and wheels on them. Now, if you want to buy them because they're cool and they're fun, that's great. And if you can afford it, respect. I'm not judging you for it. Go ahead and do it. But if you don't make money and you feel like you're stressed and you have to work and you have to grind and do all the shit you hate just to drive a certain kind of car, I think that's fucking crazy. That's you, for lack of a better word, being a slave to money and possessions, and then feeling you have to go work at your job, and it's causing you unnecessary stress. Where a lot of people, if they trade in their BMW for a Honda Accord, or they trade in their Mercedes for a Toyota Camry, it would buy them a lifestyle that they could do way more fun shit, and they'd have way more freedom, and they'd have way less stress. Now, they wouldn't look, quote unquote, as cool driving down the road, which at the end of the day, nobody gives a shit anyway. But yet people are becoming slave to those things, and I would urge you guys not to do that. Number 7, have a plan for your money and set short, medium, and long-term goals. I think this is crucial for life. I think it's the same thing for fitness. You should have short-term, medium, and long-range goals. And you may hit some, you may not hit some. Some might change and shift along the way, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with changing your mind. It's called being a mature adult, and you be able to, change gears and shift lanes and do things that are going to fit your lifestyle at the time, and then obviously what you want your life to look like in the future. But not having a plan for your money, short and long term, I think is crazy, because you're never going to get anywhere. You're going to be spinning your wheels, and if you really want to do epic shit, like in your life, you're going to have to ask yourself, what do I want my life to look like a year from now, 5 years from now, and 25 years from now? And a lot of the, financial decisions I've made in my life, let's say 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, are paying off for me today. And that's the tough part for a lot of people. It's the delayed gratification. It's the same way fitness works. It's the same way I was able to work out for many years and not look like anything, and kind of look like and feel like a bag of shit in reality. Like I would train so hard and eat so much, and my body wouldn't change at the pace I wanted it to. And all those sets and all those reps and all those painful workouts are paying off today in the body that I'm sitting in talking to you right now. If you're watching me on YouTube, obviously I look a certain way. That comes from that long-term goal that I set. So, hey man, at 30, I want to be this. At 35, I want to look like this. And then it'll be at 40 and at 50. It's the same thing with your money. You have to understand, like, what do I want to do? When do I want to retire? Is that a thing for you guys? And again, retirement isn't not an age, it's just a number. Do you need $3 million to retire at 45 years old? Do you need $4 million to retire? Do you need $1 million to retire? They're very basic, simple things that people don't think about. And obviously, when you're young and you're 22, you don't think about anything at 42. When I was 21, I thought when you're 35, you're old as shit. Well, now I'm there. I'm not old as shit. You'd be surprised how young you feel. But yet, if I would have made 6 wrong decisions, honestly, to be completely transparent with you guys, I didn't have 6 wrong decisions to make. I come from a background with no money, so every fucking decision basically had to make sense. And so if I would have made 1 wrong decision, I wouldn't have been able to make 2 or 3 of the best financial moves in my life to put me in the situation I'm in today. Because buying a car, when I quote unquote had the money to buy a Range Rover, when I had the money to buy a Benz, if I would have done that, instead of saving it for the future to, buy my condo, then, which allowed us to buy our house, which, obviously saving over time, which allowed me to buy a commercial building, that my gym is actually housed in right now, I would not have had the liquid cash to do that. And that cash would not have grown in a mutual fund over time to be able to pay me to be able to do these things. And so that's why I say you have to have a plan for your money, medium, short, and also long term. Number 8, I touched on this quickly already. Create a budget and stick to the budget and stay organized. And if you're by yourself, it's pretty simple. You know what comes in, you know what goes out. If you're with a husband or wife or a partner, you guys have to be on the same page. And you really have to just, again, spend less money than you are making. It's really that simple and basic. It's budgeting 101. It's finance 101, yet very few people choose to do that. And they kind of live on this, paycheck to paycheck lifestyle, which, by the way, if you look at the statistics, I think about 75% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So that means when you drive around your neighborhood, and this is everybody. Now, there's obviously some affluent areas, and I'm going to touch on this in a second. But that means if you're driving in your neighborhood, whoever you are listening, that means 7 out of 10 houses in your hood are living check to check, regardless of how poor or rich your neighborhood is. And here's the one thing I find funny as I get older, and I've met, so many, I'll call them financially successful people over the course of my life. I always thought when I was young, because I grew up broke and we didn't have any money, and I'll still hear my mom would say this when she would come to visit, would drive around here close to my house, and I'll share this. I live in Scottsdale, and my original realtor, who's a client of mine, he used to live about 5 minutes from me, and we went to his Christmas party. And he sold his house. It was like the last party they were having there, and he sold it. I'm like, how much did you sell it for? He goes, $8 million. And the guy paid cash for it. Which, 2 things. One, some dude just paid $8 million cash for a house. So just goes to show you, there's levels to this money shit, right? You feel like you're doing really well, and then some guy just comes in and pays $8 million cash for a house, and then they tell me that's like his 2nd or 3rd house. But that's besides the point. But point being is he lives about 5 minutes from me, and he sold his house for obviously $8 million. And you hear stuff like that, and it doesn't really sink in until I think about when I was a young kid. And I always thought, rich people owned everything. Like, right? Like, and so my mom and we drive around here, and so we drive around my old realtor's neighborhood. She's like, who lives in these homes? How do they afford it? And I'm like, well, they're people who have died for it. They're typically high earners. And the third thing is, most of them don't really own it outright. And that's what I always thought. So when I was a broke kid and we drove by like a big house and people who had nice cars, I always assumed when you were rich, you owned those things outright. But what I realized is over the years of meeting these people who are multimillionaires is they're just like my parents were growing up. They're still making payments. They just have bigger payments. Like my parents might have had a $600 a month house payment. These guys have $6,000 a month house payments. You know what I'm saying? Like my parents maybe had a car payment, or maybe they just bought beaters and never had one. I know my dad never did. And these people just have bigger car payments. That's all it is. Like the scale, all that's changed is a scale. So a lot of times the people who are living in a $3 million house, but yet they're leveraged up to the very brink, are no different than the guy living in the trailer park. Now, albeit the guy in the trailer park might only have a net worth of, $15,000, and the guy, in the $1 million house has a net worth of $2 million, but yet he's still living essentially check to check, as he still has to go to work to make the payments and to pay his bills. And that was an eye-opening for me when I first realized that wow, even people who look like they're super rich and super wealthy and successful are still super stressed, are still sometimes a slave to their possessions and their homes and their cars. And that was eye-opening to me. And that was around the time, probably 8 years ago or so, where I'm like, well, I know what I don't want my life to look like, and I know what I do want my life to look like. And I'm never going to live in an $8 million house, even if I had, the money to do that, because I'm never going to take out a loan again. That's just between all of us. I wouldn't, even if I had the cash to do that, that's not something that I would do. And I'm not judging it, but that's just me, because I don't want to take on the stress of that. My happiness is worth too much for me to stress out over just things. And so that's why I say creating a budget, and staying organized matters. And budgeting matters at all levels, whether you're, making $400,000 a year or you're making $40,000 a year. That budget does matter. Number 9, always have an emergency fund for everybody. If you follow the Dave Ramsey stuff, he typically says 3 to 6 months of expenses. I find that to probably be true as well. If you're, you live a little bit more on the dangerous side, you could err towards 3 months. If you're more conservative like me, I like to have about 12 months of expenses. So like whatever your, monthly income is for your family, whether it's just for you or it's you and your spouse, what would 3 to 6 months of that look like in a savings account or a separate account, like a money market account that you do not touch, that under any circumstance, unless the world is completely melting down and you're having emergencies, you touch it. I would say that's a good place for people to be able to sleep at night. And when you think about it, most people don't even have $500 in the bank. A lot of people don't even have $1,000 to their name, so let alone 3 to 6 months of expenses. And I think that'd be a real scary place to live, because I used to be there. I did. I remember when I moved here, I paid rent the first day I was here, and I think my bank account was already down to like $1,900 at that point. And then I obviously had to buy groceries. I bought my wife a beer one time, which was $5. I'll never remember it, because it's the most expensive beer I had bought at the time. And I'm like, holy shit, I just paid $10 for 2 beers. I'm gonna be broke quick. And that's a scary place to be. And so if you guys can, if you're listening to me, saving up 3 to 6 months of expenses in case, one of you loses a job, you have an emergency with one of you or kids, or your air conditioner goes out, or one of the cars die, or it goes into a recession and you get laid off, whatever it may be. I think just having that security blanket at night is a good place to be at. Number 10, don't use credit cards unless you have the cash. I believe this. I don't think, credit cards are inherently evil or bad. I think they can be used correctly for certain types of people. But overall, I think they're a fucking disease for most people, and they get a lot of people into a lot of trouble. And it's literally like the interest rates a lot of people are paying. It's like taking a loan from the mob, probably even worse in all reality, because they don't let you guys get out of that shit. And if you're doing it to earn miles, for traveling and certain things, and you can do it responsibly, and you use it the same way you would use like a debit card, I guess I can roll with it. We do that here at our house because I'm very responsible with the budget, but I don't think it's for most people, and that's just my belief in 2 cents. I think a lot of people, spend money recklessly when they do that, and it's different because we do use cash here at our house for a lot of things because it's painful to do. And when you go somewhere, and this is true, your brain and how memory is coded in the brain has a great association with pain. It's like, think about any like the most worst workouts you've ever done, you remember that shit. Or if you ever like ridden an assault bike for a minute, max effort, you remember how sick you feel, and it really never goes away. I mean, the pain goes away, but the memory of that pain doesn't go away. Like when I filmed the very first leg workout of Metashred Extreme with BJ Gadur, I've told him this. I'm like, I'll never forget that. I wanted to quit and walk off set because during like the very end of the split squats, I wanted to blow my fucking brains out. It was like split squats and then split jumps back and forth. I mean, he programmed it. He's, BJ, you're terrible. But he did, and that was a painful experience for me, and I'll never forget that. And spending cash is the same way. When you hand cash to somebody, it's painful for you to hand away the money because you can physically see it and you're physically handing it over. It's coded in your brain. And there's an exchange of goods there. You're handing away something and they're giving you something for it. So you had $100, now you have $45. It's painful to see that money go out of your hand. When you swipe a credit card and you use it, there's no exchange of goods. You swipe your card, or now you stick it in, they read the chip, and then you take it back, and they give you the stuff. And then you live to look at it, numbers on the screen later, and then you pay the bill, hopefully on time. But there's no pain associated with that. And that's how we, when my wife's car had died years ago, I paid for a majority of it in cash, in paper money, because I wanted to remember what that felt like. I'm lucky and I'm fortunate enough to be in a position to do that. But I remember handing it over, and they're looking at me like I'm fucking crazy as 3 dudes are counting all the money, because they're like, who the hell does this? And I'm like, this is a painful experience. I don't want to do this again. And it would have been much easier for me to, swipe a credit card if they would have let me out. I would have took the airline miles for sure. But to, put it on a loan and then make the payment small over time, because it's way less painful, to make $356 payments than it would be to just drop 20 G's cash right on the spot. But I don't want to pay interest for a depreciating asset. That's why I don't do auto loans, just for the record, you guys. I'm never going to pay interest on something that's going down in value every single day. I think that is ridiculous. I'm not judging anybody. Respect. I don't know your situation. If you like to drive nice things, that's super cool. I think it's amazing. I like watching them drive down the road. I'm just not personally willing to do that. So that's where I say don't use a credit card unless you're super responsible, super diligent, and you stick to the budget of what you're choosing to spend on that, and you have the cash to pay it off as soon as the bill comes due every single month. Otherwise, for most of you, just hook it up to a debit card in your checking account. Fuck the miles, dude. Or just use cash anytime you can. And I promise you, you'll spend significantly less using cash than you will with a credit card. Because when you don't have the cash for it and you're at the store, you can only spend what you got in your hand. You can't swap, quote unquote, the magic card, and things just work out. Next one. Always make your money work for you in some capacity. This is why I harp on the investing thing for a lot of you guys. And that can look like a lot of things. You can invest in yourself. You can invest in your business. But when I say work for you, when you look at the stock market over time, even if you're only getting 5 or 6% returns on your money, I don't know of another place where you can just set money and over the course of 20, 30 years, it pays you 5 to 6%. On the dollar. Some of you guys who have better, mutual funds, it could be 7, 8, 9, 10%. But if you look at the average, I think they probably say 6% is kind of like a safe bet for most people. So that means if you got 100 grand in the bank or in your, Roth IRA, your 401k, your SEP stuff, if there's $100,000 in there, you're gonna get $6,000 a year for doing jack shit. Pretty cool. If you got $100,000 in the bank at Bank of America or Wells Fargo, they're giving you like $37. It's horse shit. So that's why I say like having your, money work for you in some capacity, I think is ideal. Obviously, if you own rental properties, those things are going to cash flow, obviously, once they're completely paid off. If you're investing into real estate, short of, 07, 08, which I lived through, we've never seen real estate take a hit that drastic, although I'd be interested to see what is going to happen here in the future. I don't see how it can keep going up, but again, I'm not an analyst. I don't know. I just know how ridiculously expensive it's gotten in my neighborhood for what I paid for my house, and if I had to rebuy it again today, there's no fucking way I would do it. So there's that. But I think investing in things and having your money make money, or investing them in things that tend to go up in value, not go down in value, i.e. vehicles and clothes and handbags and crazy shit, is probably a good place to stick your money in terms of if you want to be, financially independent and successful in the long haul. Number 12. It's not what you make, it's what you keep. This goes back to, spending less than you earn, but it isn't what you make, you guys, it's what you keep. And I'm going to share this really fast. I remember sitting in like a mastermind group, and they're sharing the numbers of top line revenue of what these guys made in fitness for the year. And it was like close to $1 million. And basically it was just over $1 million, I think. It was either just under $1 million or just over $1 million. And then they're like, what was the profit margin? And it was like less than 10%. So, I mean, these guys did fitness, which is amazing, by the way. You're generating $1 million in fitness in a year, which is really impressive to do. And I'm not talking like, a Lifetime or EOS or LA Fitness. I'm talking like small mom and pop places like me, like a Jeremy Scott Fitness or, Arizona Training Lab or, something like that, where it's these guys were generating about $1 million in business, and they're keeping less than 10%. So for $1 million worth of, die hard work, they walked out the door with $92,000. Which isn't a lot to me. If you're making that much, I would assume you're keeping way more than that. Now, I don't have the percentages for every single business of what they should keep, but same thing for you guys who have individual incomes. If you make $100,000 a year, but at the end of the year, you're only keeping $3,000, where is all that money going? Does that make sense? Like, to the guy who makes $44,000 a year, and at the end of the year, he keeps 22 of it. Like, he's doing much better than the guy who makes 100. So again, it's not about what you make. It's what you keep at the end of the day. How profitable can you be with the money that is coming into your life? Number 13, understand that there's a money and work ratio happiness for us all. And I think this is important. And I'll touch on it this way. There's a line where you draw when there comes a point where you start to make a certain amount of money. It starts to steal from you. It starts to steal time. It starts to steal happiness, effort, and energy from your life. Now, obviously, you have to grind and work hard if you want to make a decent amount of money in the world in America. And how much you need is up to you guys. But I think the statistic they throw out there is anything over like $75,000 a year, the happiness level really doesn't change that much for a lot of people. Meaning, for them to earn over $75,000, a lot of people have to die for it, depending on their chosen career field, and it's really robbing them. So they go from 75 to 84, but that extra $9,000 took this much more effort. They had to take more business trips, or they had to eat more shit, or they went from 75 to 95, and that extra 20K was crushing them in terms of the amount of stress they had to take on for the next level job or the next promotion. And only you guys know where that lies. And if you look at highest earning people in America or in the world, they tend to be the people who can take on the most amount of stress and eat the most amount of shit and be the most flexible and work the longest hours and have the highest skilled jobs. Not always, but more often than not. Obviously, if you're somebody who's a brain surgeon, you're going to get paid a lot of money. Not everybody can do what you do, and there's a lot of stress associated with that. We got a girl in our space, she's an anesthesiologist. She just graduated, makes a shit ton of money. There's a lot of pressure with that. You're putting people under. You're responsible for their lives, having them come back to life, if you will, and making sure that they're getting what they need, and pumping them with a certain amount of drugs and monitoring their vital signs. And so the amount of money you make in this life is directly connected to the amount of stress you're willing to take, or the amount of highly technical skill you have that you're willing to display and give back to the world overall. And for a lot of people, I think they think if they made a certain amount of money, they would be super happy and it would fix all their problems. And if you're dead broke, then obviously, going from making $12,000 a year to $35,000 a year is going to change the scope of your life drastically. But for a lot of people, the amount of stress you would have to take on and the amount of shit you'd have to eat to make $157,000 a year, to make $101,000 a year, to make $220,000 a year is not worth it for you. You'd rather have more free time. You'd rather be able to sleep in on the weekends and have more relaxation and not travel and not deal with high stress situations. But for some of you, the stress is worth it and the juice is worth the squeeze for the money. But only you guys know where that line falls. And just know that when you're going for promotions and trying to make money and do different things, sometimes a couple extra bucks really isn't worth the headache. Just my opinion. Number 14, you have to have multiple sources of income, whether that be side hustles and investments, and a handful of things. And this is the one thing that became eye-opening to me when I became, a business owner or an entrepreneur, if you will. It's not just, selling fitness. It's not just selling, personal training or group training or nutrition or t-shirts and hats or podcasting or affiliates or online coaching or it's anything and everything is how I look at it at this point. Now, obviously, I'm not going to invest in things I don't understand. I'm not going to say yes to job opportunities and stuff that I'm not, smart enough to be able to see it through. If someone wants me to come, teach a yoga class, it's not for me. A, they can't afford me anyway, and two, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. But point being is you have to have multiple streams of revenue and income, in my opinion, to be financially independent and successful for most people. And for us, when I look at it, I think we have like 12 different revenue streams at all times going. Now, throughout the year, that can go up to probably 15 or 16. But for the most part, we have 12 different streams of revenue that are paying Jeremy Scott Fitness and the subsidiaries that run off of Jeremy Scott Fitness, the company. And I believe that's important. And when I got into this entrepreneurial type life, that's what I grasped onto that. And that's one of the things I think is the coolest is when you're getting 12 different checks coming in, it alleviates pressure from everything else. And it makes it's kind of fun. It's almost like these little side hustle games that we play. And I enjoy that. And obviously investing into commercial real estate, residential real estate, and obviously into the market as well, I think is important for all people. And when you're in a corporate job, I think sometimes you get tunnel vision, or you kind of blinders on you when you're going down the track because you think, well, I work at my job Monday through Friday and this is it and this is all I can do. But even doing something so simple as a side hustle that brings you an extra $500 a month, for a lot of you guys out there who qualify, that can fund your Roth IRA. There you go. Your side hustle alone can fund your Roth IRA, which that alone over the terms of 40 years is probably going to make you a millionaire anyway. It's really basic stuff like that. When you work in corporate America, a lot of times people think like they can't do other things, but you can. You can have a side hustle. You can have passion projects that end up turning into things that make money. And even if it only makes you $3,000 a year. That's $3,000 a year. It might pay for some of your kids' sports. It might pay for a down payment on braces. It might pay for a beater car for your 16-year-old kid. But I think if you want to be, really financially independent and have a better chance to do some of the things you want, having a little side hustle or one or two streams of revenue outside of your main, job or source of income is a great idea. Number 15, you don't have to make six figures to become a millionaire. And this is 100% true. When you look at all the studies of millionaires, and whether it's you're reading The Millionaire Next Door, or Chris Hogan has a new Everyday Millionaires book that's out as well. But I think the Millionaire Next Door was the first book that I read on millionaires many, many, many years ago, probably when I was 26. I stumbled upon that, and just to see the basic habits of people. When you look at the top 3 earners for millionaires, I think it's accountants, what's the next one? Engineers, and then teachers, oddly enough, are the top 3 professions of people who are millionaires on average when you look at the 12 million that are in America. And some of those guys might make 6 figures, but if you're a teacher, I don't know any teachers who make 6 figures. I guess if you're like a college professor maybe and you've been in the game for a long time, but if you're like doing high school or middle school or elementary school, there's no way you're making 6 figures, but yet those people became millionaires. Again, this comes back to the point of it's not what you make, it's what you keep, and it's what type of lifestyle are you living today, and what do you want your lifestyle to look like 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. And obviously still live your life and have fun. I'm not telling you to save all your money for retirement, and live in a cave and don't do, fun, cool shit, but understanding that you don't have to make $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year to become a millionaire. Most people didn't do it that way. Slow and steady won the race. They made, way more money than they spent, and they made smart decisions along the way, and they invested things that went up in value as opposed to things that went down in value, and they didn't get too fancy and too crazy with their shit too soon. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway. Everybody wants to be fancy super quick, and they've forgotten like what middle America even really looks like. And I'll touch on that before I let you guys go here. Number 16, give to those who have less than you whenever you can. And I know this might sound counterintuitive or productive for you guys trying to build wealth and do certain things. And obviously if you're in, $50,000 in debt, if you owe $300,000 on your house, if you have, car leases and payments, and you have a shit ton of student loans, you probably can't be as generous and as giving as you like. But just so you know, there's always people out there who are in bigger need than you. And I'm not telling you if you're a person of faith and you tithe and that's what you do, that's cool. That's 10% off the top for you guys who don't know of everything. If you belong to a church, that's what they do. What we choose to do at our house is many things individually with our family here and through my business. So like when we just did the breast cancer shirts for American Breast Cancer Society for the Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And we set out a goal to raise at least like $3,000, and I think we're already way past. I think we sold out in actually a day. So what I did was I took my own money, we bought the shirts, we branded them, we made them cool, and I know if we did that, people would want the shirts, and we allowed them to donate whatever they wanted to. That was our version of giving back to them to be able to raise money for breast cancer and give people back something that they wanted to while allowing them to give, to bringing them into the community. We do adoptive families at Christmas time and Thanksgiving time where we go to sometimes through Goodwill or St. Vincent de Paul. They hook us up with the family and we go deliver them things. Sometimes it's Thanksgiving dinner. Christmas time, it's Christmas dinner, it's Christmas presents. And I remember, these are people who have nothing. And I grew up with not a lot. And going to these homes in South Phoenix here, which is not sometimes the greatest area, in some of these communities where it's like we're a mom and there's no dad, or maybe there's a mom and dad but they have like 6 kids, or it's a mother and like 5 kids. And she doesn't really speak the language sometimes, and then obviously the kids are growing up in this ecosystem and environment. A lot of the homes have bars in the windows, they have gates on the driveways, and we go do adoptive family. And I remember one of the first years we delivered them a microwave to the family, and we brought the microwave in and they unwrapped it in front of us, and these kids are crying. Like these little kids are like crying tears of joy. They're so jacked, they're so excited for a fucking microwave, you guys. Like, I grew up with no money. We always had a fucking microwave. Like my God, there's levels to this money shit, right? There's levels that go up, and man, there's levels that go down. And when you see that, there's no amount of better money I spent the entire year than helping fund that family to have a fucking microwave. Like, what do I need to drive around a Range Rover for if I could help somebody feel this way today? the feeling I got selfishly from giving that to them was worth more than anything I got for Christmas that year for sure. And when we went last year, it was a mom, and she had 3 kids, and in the worst, I mean, literally like the worst house I've ever been in, that I've ever seen. And I remember my wife and I stopped there. We brought the Christmas presents to the kids, and these kids are just, I mean, I've never seen kids so jacked and so excited in your entire life. And the feeling you get from that is just from giving. And there's no amount of money that would make me feel that way. Saying that my net worth is $2 million or $3 million or $4 million doesn't mean shit to me. But giving a kid that feeling that he'll remember or she'll remember for the rest of their lives is powerful. And I think that's part of having money and being in a place where you did things responsibly and right because you could. You're able to now do things for other people who can't. And maybe, you know, bring some joy and some happiness to their life. And that's, to me, how I choose to spend a lot of my money. And a lot of people who see me who I don't, you know, wear the fanciest clothes and I don't, you know, drive the fanciest car. It's because I have the opportunity to do things like this. My wife and I both take a ton of joy in that. And selfishly, it gives stuff to us, you know, that we couldn't get by other means. Number 17, don't try to look rich. The ultimate goal is to be rich. I'll say that again. Don't try to look rich. The ultimate goal is to actually be rich. And I mean financially rich. You have to stop buying stupid things you can't afford to impress people you don't fucking like. You'll lose that game in the end, big time. And I see a lot of people doing that. A lot of times we're driving cars and we're buying things and clothes and bags and shit. And sometimes it's for you because you love it and you're a car person or a bag person. Respect. I'm not judging you. If you can afford it, do it. It's awesome. Flaunt it. I don't care. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to people who are stretching to do it. I'm talking to people who are stressing themselves out to do it and buying things for status and ego to fill some gap that's missing or fill some void in their life to think that will bring you happiness, and it will not. You have to stop stressing yourself out at a job you do not like to buy a bunch of dumb fucking shit you don't need to impress people you don't like who don't give a shit about it anyway. And yet this goes on every single day in America, 24/7, 365, and I just do not understand it. And I'm so thankful that I have this brain and I'm not in the system. It's almost like when I watch it, they are in the fucking matrix and I'm outside of it. And I'm watching like a video game go on and I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you guys? And again, if this offends you by listening to it and you have a shit ton of money, I'm not talking to you. But if you're stressed and you find yourself doing this, and be honest, why do you drive a BMW? Why do you drive a Mercedes? I'm not against it. It's if you love the machine, you love the car, you like how it feels and it drives, and you've wanted one as a kid and you studied it and your dad drove one and there's some like emotional attachment to it and you can afford it, awesome, do it. But if you're doing it just to look fucking cool to somebody or impress some girl or impress some guy or look fancy to your coworkers or your friends, you're fucking losing, dude. And it's stupid. And I promise you, you're going to wake up one day and you remember me saying this and be like, wow, you know what? I heard some dude say this when I was like 27 and now I'm 52 and now I fucking get it. I wish I would have listened to that dumbass muscle fitness guy, 20 years ago, but I didn't. And hopefully you get it by 52. Sorry for the rant there. That would be my 17 kind of rules for money. And if you want to go a bonus one here, I'll go bonus number 18. 2 things with a bonus. So we'll go 18 and 18B, if you will. 2 things. If you're with a partner, you got to be on the same page. You just do. You have to have an open conversation about money, both short and long-term goals. If not, it's going to cause great stress in your relationship. You cannot do it alone. You cannot do it while one of you is a saver and one of you is a spender. It's like ice skating uphill, man. You might make some progress, but man, it does not take much for one person to torpedo all your efforts and results. You have to be on the same page. Just like, a lot of people don't, honestly, the crazy thing is a lot of husbands and wives don't communicate about sex. Like what they like, what they don't like, what feels good, what doesn't feel good. And it's like this embarrassing place for them to live, which is really strange to me because I think that's a big part of your life. You have to like the sex that you have. It's a different podcast altogether. I'll get my wife on. We can talk about that sometime. But I think money is the same thing. And it's like this thing that we don't talk about in society with parents and friends and family. And it's fucking weird. But you need to. And you need to be educated about it. And you have to be on the same page and have the same goals. And you might find out, like, your partner wants to travel, but you don't. Or your partner wants to have a second home in the country, but you don't. And there's certain things that you're going to uncover and learn about each other. And luckily for me, my wife has always, wanted to make her own money and have a certain sense of independence. And she's obviously the spender of us too. I'm, much more frugal, and I come from a much more, modest background, up the way up, modest background, if you will. But now that she's older and educated, she truly gets it and what it takes to, really be financially independent, what it takes to be wealthy and not just look wealthy. And, she'll come on the podcast. I'm going to have her on. We'll be in Hawaii next week, and I'll bring her on for a couple episodes. It'll be fun for us. But she used to get caught up in that comparison stuff too. And now at 33, she really gets it. Now I had to surround her, and drag her to Chris Hogan. And I had to drag her to Christy Wright and Rachel Cruz and Dave Ramsey, as other people, and have her and share stories that I've learned because of the ecosystem that I'm in. But she gets it, and we're both on the same page. And if you're in a relationship where one person isn't and the other one is, it's really tough, man. And you have to understand, like, what do you want your life to look like? How long do you guys want to work? How much stress do you guys want to take on? What do you want your free time to look like? What do you want to be able to do with your time and your money as you age and get older? And I think that's a really important conversation to have. And it's going to change, from 25 to 30 and from 35 to 40 and so on. That's why we continually set a budget every month. It's why we communicate. That's why we both decide to pay down our house, because we're in a position that very few people will ever be in, and we can do something now that's never been done. And it's going to set us up for the next, 30 years of our life. And if nothing else, even if I drop dead a year from now, I left my wife with a shit ton of cash, assets, life insurance, and a paid-for home. So I did my duty as a husband to be a responsible person. And obviously, I don't even have kids. And if you're somebody out there who has kids, I would think that you would think the same way. And that's how I feel. I feel a responsibility to her to not leave her holding the bag. Like, hey, I fucked you over. You owe $800,000 on a house and some cars and credit cards, and now you're screwed. And you got to liquidate everything and sell it, and you're going to be destitute. I would never want to do that as a man to my wife. And so that's why I do take this, as serious as I do. I don't want other people to have to clean up my fucking shit. Like, if it's my mess, I'm going to clean it up. And that's the position that we're in today. And so we're both on the same page in that regard. And the same note, like, she doesn't want to drop dead and leave me with a bunch of bullshit either. So, and I appreciate her for doing that. On a side note, last thing I'm going to leave you guys with, don't be fooled by what you think winning looks like when you guys are on this journey. And if you're going to try to do this, and get yourself out of debt and be financially independent and be wealthy and do things like your friends and family won't do, I'm not judging them, but just know that, if we know 75% of people, so 75% of people are living check to check. So that's meaning that basically they're stressed and they're broke. Odds are a lot of your friends and family are that. And so you can't take advice from people who are losing. Again, like, first of all, I don't want anybody's advice. If I turn into a podcast, I'm listening to Dave Ramsey's advice. I'm listening to, Gary Vee's advice. I'm listening to, B.J. Gadur's advice. I'm listening to Tommy Baker's advice. Like, that's what I'm tuning in for. But just know they're going to give you advice. And I never take advice from people who are losing bigger than me. I just don't know. If your net worth is $30 million and you're stress-free and you love your life, I'm going to listen to you, because that's a position that I would like to be in. And at least if nothing else, I don't want to do exactly what you're doing. I can learn from you. So don't be fooled about what you think winning looks like, because the example I'll give you is this, and I'll leave you guys after this. If you have two people, and those two people only have about $1,000 extra to spend, to save, or to play. So, I mean, they have an emergency fund built, and, they have a couple bucks, about $1,000, let's say, that they can spend it, they can save it, or they can play with it. And one of those people invests $500, into mutual funds, or invested into their Roth IRA. Now they essentially have $1,500 because they've invested into something which is going to compound and grow over time. And the other person spends the $500 at a night out with, friends at a fancy dinner and has a shit ton of drinks, and they post the photos on social media, or they take a trip with it, which again, I'm all for experiences over stuff. They'll post all the photos on IG and Instagram, and of those people, one of them looks like they're winning, and one of them is actually winning for the future. And the point of me sharing that is because social media can be a fake bullshit highlight reel of showing people winning when they're actually fucking losing. And I'm sharing it for you not to be one of those people. And the real life example I could give you is this. When we do pay off our home, and 19 things could go wrong, and it could still take me 10 years to do it, which would still be 15 years faster than like what the 30-year schedule would be in anyway. So it's still a win. But let's say we pay it off on time. So we pay it off in less than a year from now. And I post it and I talk about it, and not to brag or say it's awesome, but to share with people, hey, I was once a broke dipshit, and here the position I'm in today, now you can be in as well. That's why I'm sharing this stuff. It's not to put me up on a pedestal by any means. I got a doctorate in dumb shit, and then I probably will have a PhD and a bunch of other doctorate degrees in dumb shit by the time my life is over. But I share it to show you guys there is hope and it can be done. But when I post that and talk about that, people will comment. People will say congratulations and say certain things. But I can promise you, if I took a picture next to a Mercedes-Benz, if I took a picture next to a Range Rover, if I took a picture next to a G-Wagon and I posted and said, hashtag blessed, and I posed up next to it like some fucking douchebag, and I shared it, I would get so many likes and comments and congratulations. Even though I probably leased it, I got an $800 a month lease payment, I'm going to have to give it back. I don't really own it, I didn't really buy shit, but yet the world thinks I'm fucking winning. And that would get more engagement, more follows, more likes, and people would envy and think it was way fucking cooler than me paying off my house at 36. And again, I'm not judging you guys for that, but that just goes to show you social media can be a fake bullshit highlight reel of people showing what winning looks like to the people in the world, but yet you're really losing. And yet what really winning looks like isn't as fancy, isn't as sexy, and isn't as amazing to what everybody thinks it is. And I share that for the simple fact of when you do things the right way, when you take the time, and you do it in a way that it can't be erased and it can't be taken away from you. It's not sexy, it's not fancy, it's not, something that you can really sell to people. It's just the tried and true things that work. It's the same thing with fitness, and that's why I harp on the finance stuff so much. I could sell so much fitness shit that's sensationalized and super sexy and with a bunch of half-truths, and it's really not going to help people, but it looks fancy, and they'll buy it, and I know it'll make me money, when the reality is tracking your macros, eating at a calorie deficit, being active, getting quality sleep, not stressing out, wash, rinse, repeating that over time will make you the healthiest, happiest version of yourself. And that's a lifetime program. That's really hard to sell in fitness. That's not super sexy. That's not get ripped in 5 days. That's not get six-pack abs in 6 minutes. But yet, in finance, we do that. Oh, invest in Bitcoin or make, $10,000 a month just working from home. All this, get rich quick fucking horse shit. That's not real. Passive income's not real. These things don't exist. Just like, getting ripped in 2 weeks doesn't exist. It's the tried and true stuff. It's spending less money than you make, investing in things over time that go up in value, being diligent, wash, rinse, repeat. It's the same in your fitness life as it is in your finance life. It's not sexy. It doesn't really excite people when you talk about it, but it's the only things that truly work. Now, obviously, there's anomalies and there's unicorns outside of that where people could, have one-off ideas or get really, lucky. They could win the lottery or their parents could leave them millions of dollars. But if you're like me, you don't play the lottery. If you're like me, your parents aren't millionaires. If you're like me, you're not going to make $5 million in a year. If you're like me, you're going to have to do it, the slow and simple way. Just make as much money as you can, being happy doing it, spending less than you make, invest in things that go up over value, don't buy a bunch of dumb shit you don't need, don't be super fancy before you can be fucking fancy, live as cheap as you can, as long as you can, and have fun along the way. Because the greatest things in life at the end of the day, they're not bought with money. It's just about doing things that you love to do every single day. And most of those things don't cost that much. And the crazy thing is if you do it right, you're going to have the money on the back end anyway to spend it. And if you're smart about it, you guys will make it work. Regardless if you make $37,000 a year or $137,000 a year. And the beautiful thing is at this point, you have the internet. You can drive Uber, you can deliver pizzas, you can start a side hustle. You can do so many things to generate money and change your financial tree and change your family situation that your parents and your grandparents couldn't have had. There really is no excuse. It's just, do you have the diligence to delay gratifications today for something you want to happen 5, 10, 15 years from now? And are you willing to just see it through? And know that if you do things right for 5 years, you can probably live the next 25 years like nobody else can. But that just comes down to you delaying gratification and not getting too fancy too soon. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that rant. It went a lot longer than I had planned, but again, it's just my takeaway from it. And take it from a kid who was once broke as fuck to now who is living literally my dream life, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. And a lot of times it does take a certain level of patience that even does test me. And it's painful at times, especially when you do see people around you, doing a bunch of stuff you wish you could do. But just know if you do it the right way, you won't have to fake it to make it. You're actually going to be making it, and you'll be able to live a life like nobody else can live, for the rest of it. So Anything else you guys want to hear on the podcast, shoot me a message, hit me up. I'm happy to share it. If you enjoyed this, share it with a friend or family member. Tag me in it. If you're on YouTube, thank you guys for watching. And if you have iTunes right now, stop. Don't be a lazy ass. Please, you guys, drop me a 5-star. Leave a comment. It takes all of about 30 seconds. And again, like I said, open up your iPhone, iPad, MacBook, 5-star it, review it, and share it with a friend or family member who might be struggling with finances or wants to hear somebody kick it to them real, because nobody was once really broker than me, and I'm in a pretty good position today. And again, all I did was spend less than I made, make smart decisions, wash, rinse, repeat. So until next time, eat well, train hard, be nice people, and please, you guys, keep doing shit you love with people you enjoy, because your life is too short not to. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.